Okay.
Okay, you can start.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me to give a lecture. This is my lecture about my 5 lecture series. Today we talk about the manufacturing in India. It was exactly 10 years ago, 2014, in the spring, about this time, and I was in New Delhi. I was in New Delhi visiting a research institute and try to learn about India. At that time, the Modi was the prime minister. No, the Modi, the current prime minister. At that time, he was campaigning, and I had the chance in New Delhi meet a lot of Indian scholars and some prominent Indian economists, and such as Professor Arvind Panagaria, who is the Columbia University professor. He later became the chief economic advisor to Prime Minister Modi, and he has talked a lot about the uh, economic reform in India, and particularly talk about how India can develop its manufacturing sectors and to create jobs uh, for the unskilled laborers. We know in India they have a lot of rural workers in agriculture sectors, which is very big in agriculture sectors, and those people does not make a good living because the condition is poor and their income is low, so they have a lot of poverty issues and income inequality issues in India. So that's the big economic problem for India. So there's the big issues at that time was um, how to create jobs, how to create jobs for the rural poor workers. That's the big problem. And when 10 years ago, when the Modi won the election, became prime minister, and shortly after, he launched a big program they call Make in India initiative. The Make in India initiative actually is try to uh, develop India into a manufacturing powerhouse, to make a powerhouse. In economics, we know that India has a large population. Today it's the largest population. At that time, it was second largest, only behind China, and young population, young demography, and India has a lot of labor, right? Cheap labor, but this make India to become ideal place to produce uh, labor-intensive manufacturing goods, like China did in the past 20 years. And so this is the economics comparative advantage is the famous principle in economics. They call it comparative advantage. But somehow India has not have its realized its potential to be a economic powerhouse to produce the manufacturing products. And that's the big problem. So on one hand, India has a big potential. On the other hand, it has a problem. It did not realize its potential. And so this a lot of people living in the rural area, they cannot get a job. On the other hand, we see India has a big, very developed IT sectors, information technology, outsourcing destination for US high-tech companies. That's in India. So it's very strange. It's very strange. On one hand, there's a lot of IT industries and have a high-paying white-collar work job. That's office workers, software engineers. On the other hand, India has a lot of poor population in the rural area and does not have a chance to develop its to enjoy the economic development. So that's a big problem for India. So make in India initiative is a signature project for Prime Minister Modi. And so that has been passed for about 10 years. But so far, there are a lot of assessment some are criticism, some are praise for the prime minister for the economic performance in India. But basically, some people are saying it's very slow. The development has been very, very slow, and the Make in India initiative has not been very successful. Yeah, but then some people say, well, considering the difficulties, the historical problem with India's labor law and land laws, and India has tried his best. It's very good. It's a very good. So there's a very different views about what happened in India, how to evaluate the performance of India. Well, what has related to Thailand? I think there is a lesson for Thailand because if you look at the Thai economy and the Indian economy, you see they're different. Of course they're different. They're so different in many, many ways. But also you can see I'm an economist. I also look at the structure of the economy. They're pretty much similar because India is how to say has a large rural population. And Thailand also has a large rural population. In India, the number about 40% or something, over 40% living in the labor force is in agriculture. In Thailand, it's about 30%. It's 30%. But also there's a lot of poor rural workers in the rural area in Thailand. But on the other hand, India has a service sector, very, very, very well developed service sector in IT. But Thailand has a very, very well developed service sector in tourism. So one on the tourism. In terms of manufacturing, India has big companies like Tata, and they have big companies. But it's auto companies. In Thailand, they also have the big auto industries, energy auto industries. So there's a lot of similarity. But the problem is that both India and Thailand has a large has a large rural population, which are the problem. The political leaders try to solve this problem to help these poor farmers. And in both countries, they resort to populist policies. And in India, there's a lot of subsidies given to the poor farmers. A lot of subsidies given to the poor farmers, and also there's a lot of law, especially the land law, to protect the rights of the poor landowners, and the land laws to protect the farmers. A lot of populist policies and a lot of laws that was initiated at the beginning with intention to protect the poor farmers. To protect poor farmers, we call this populist policy. But in fact, as I will analyze in this lecture, those policies will hurt the farmers, hurt the poor. Well, let's last lecture, I talk about the minimum wage among many other social economic issues in Thailand. A minimum wage. The minimum wage was intended to raise the income, raise the wage to improve the income for the poor people. But we know from analysis, and we also know from reading the newspaper about the discussion about these comments in this minimum wage, some business will not be happy about this. They're going to reduce their employment and reduce their hiring. So the job opening for the poor will be fewer, and that will be bad for the poor laborers. So in Thailand, the government also tried to promote the populist policies. Minimum wage is one, digital wallet is another one, and earlier there's a rice support program. That's a subsidy for agriculture, right? The subsidy for agriculture. So in both countries, the political leaders, the politicians, has been and are also promoting the populist policies, try to help the poor. right? Try to help the poor. But this will, from the last lecture, our analysis show this minimum wage will actually not work. They will solve one problem, but they will create many other problems. It's not good policies, right? Okay, but sleep chat. I just cannot. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I got. I'm going to. Okay, I'm trying to. Okay. Ooh. How can I move back from it? Okay, good. Oh, oh. Hey, wait a minute. I have some. Wait a minute. Let me see. How can I? Okay, good. Okay. On the other hand, I have now started to move my slides. I will, but now let me finish my talk. Uh, on the other hand, in the two countries, especially in Thailand, the prime minister is trying to push for investment, try to attract investment in some sectors, and try to attract foreign investment in solar panel, in electric vehicles, and in the sector they believe they have a high growth potential. They call this S-shaped industries. And those sectors, they hope, it's, these sectors are very advanced, very glamorous. It's electronic vehicles, solar energies, and auto industries. And probably they're talking about some high-tech companies. When the prime minister visited the San Francisco, he met with the Silicon Valley, businessmen and tried to encourage them to invest in Thailand for high-tech economies. And this is another development. In the high-tech economies, those sectors, but from our analysis, we'll see those sectors in both Thailand and actually were not help with the poor. Now I will use the experience in India to show why the Thailand should encourage more investment in labor intensive manufacturers. Okay, let's start from my. I'm going to start my. I'm going to start my slides. Let's see what the people are talking with me. Okay. 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 Let's start. So the issue is, let's see.
Okay, okay.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right, right?
moving.
It's moving. It's moving. How can I get? Okay. 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 The issue is we need in both countries, in India and Thailand, The issue is we need more jobs. We need more jobs for the unskilled labor. This is the top issues and to fight poverty and inequality. We know in today's this is in both countries, especially in India. 10 years ago, there's the problem, but still have this problem. More jobs for unskilled labor and to fight poverty and inequality. And 10 years ago, it's a Made in India initiative. That's a Prime Modi's signature initiative. That's a great design to turn India into a manufacturing powerhouse. But it has been a lot of problem. It has been hampered by the country's stringent land and labor laws. So we then lesson for Thailand, which share the many similarities with India. So Thailand can learn from India, and yeah, okay, there's something. This is the structure of this lecture. We have talked a lot, at the beginning about this structure. The core issue that is we need more jobs for the unskilled labor, and those unskilled laborers are mostly in the rural area, and we need to create more job for them, and that's a problem. Okay, now there is a link actually. There's a link. There is a link between unskilled job and development. What's the link between the unskilled job and development? Because manufacturing is a proven path for development. Let's look at development experience for countries after World War II. Most countries, developing countries, start with rural agricultural economy, agrarian economies. We say this agrarian economies, and to modern economies. So industrialization through manufacturing development, that's the path they all follow. There's almost no exception. There's almost no exception. At the beginning, the economy after independence, they are basically agriculture economy. And they have to develop their industry. And what they do is to do it through manufacturing development. And for example, we know today's Singapore, today's Hong Kong, and in Southeast Asia, the most successful experience in Korea, in Thailand, and those economy today it boasts a very advanced technology and service sectors. But during the development process, they start with something very simple manufacturing. For example, in Thailand, in Hong Kong, they develop they manufacturing they produce plastic flowers, and they make a lot plastic of flowers and toys and furnitures, and it's also in Taiwan and export to the United States. These are labor-intensive products, not very much technology in that sectors. But then overall, over time, they develop this economy, they accumulate the wealth, then they start to move upward towards the technology value chain. Though they produce Taiwan now is a semiconductor, and Korea is also the high-tech semiconductor and smartphone. Hong Kong become the financial sector. Hong Kong, Singapore, the financial centers. Now they move, but they all went through the stage of manufacturing development. This is something you have to do it. You cannot bypass the manufacturing development. So the importance. Why is the manufacturing is so important for the economic development? Because the sector, the industry, manufacturing industry, they create the jobs. They create a lot of jobs especially for the unskilled workers. They have a scope to produce jobs, and you can say, oh yeah, IT sector also produce jobs. IT, right? In India's information technology IT sector, but IT create most job for engineer, for software developer, and those people mostly to have to go through have a college education. They are trained engineering, but those jobs are not suitable for the unskilled workers. They just migrate from rural to cities. They are looking for a job, but the IT job is not suitable for them. Okay, we say the Thailand's tourism sector. Tourist sectors, if a tour operator, you have to have a good knowledge about, English, or you have to know English, right? If you went spend time in the call center, you see that everybody speak English, even the shop owners, the shop owners speak English. So speak English, for the developing country, that's a big skill. That's a big skill, right? That's a big skill. And if you don't speak English, you may find some job to the hotel, to the restaurant, but this number openings are very limited. And the service is difficult to trade. It's basically non-tradable, because if you want to develop, like in Thailand's tourist sectors, the tourist sectors have to have the tourist has to come to Thailand, right? They come to Thailand, spend money. That's your service exporters. But for manufacturers, it just makes some goods and export to them. To ship goods outside and export goods is much easier than bring tourists come to Thailand, right? The same for so the service sectors can create some jobs, but the number of jobs are limited. The scope are very limited. Same for, it is true for Indians' IT job. Also, it is true for the Thailand's tourism sectors. So the manufacturer has no such problem. Manufacturers have a large scale. It can make toys. It can make clothes. You can make furniture. You can make all those electronics and export to them. The scope is very large, so they have a potential to create a large number of jobs for the unskilled workers, and also they have a high productivities. And therefore, there's a high wage income. We know from this have some numbers from numbers. There are, say, 30% labor force. About 1/3 of labor force in Thailand, they work in the agriculture sector, but they only produce 10% of GDPs. But in manufacturing services sectors, it's a much smaller share of labor force, but they create a large number of GDPs. So this number shows that the productivity in agriculture actually is very low. If you put all those workers in the low productive sectors, in agriculture, then the problem is that they cannot earn high wage. They cannot earn a good income, because the sector has low productivities. So all the development experience in the past, in the many other countries, is that you create job opportunities in the manufacturing sectors and move the poor population from agriculture to the manufacturing sector. This is the successful experience for many countries, including China. So know-how, when the manufacturing sector also have the people can develop skill and learn the new know-hows and to be skilled workers. So this they can help the know-how acquisition and skill enhancement. It's good for the development of a skilled labor force. So this is very important for the economic development for manufacturers. In short, you simply cannot skip. You cannot skip the manufacturing sector, jump to the service sectors. You have to have a robust manufacturing sectors in order to boost the economy, to create the healthy economic development. So that's manufacturing sector is something you just cannot bypass in the economic development. So the problem with the Indian economy is that India has the largest population in the world. Today is the very largest population. It's the largest and also the youngest population, very young population. And according to the principal comparative advantage, it should be producer of labor-intensive manufacturing like China. It should be like China because everything is similar at China, large population, and it should be able to be a producer and exporter of labor-intensive manufacturing. But there's a sharp contrast. India has a strong service sectors, IT and financial service, where manufacturing is very weak. So a large rural population agriculture sector, low productivity, low wage income, and then there's a poverty and there's inequality. So India has the potential, but the potential has not been fully realized. So why is that? So that's why in 2014, 10 years ago, Prime Minister Modi launched a Make in India initiative. That's something is ongoing. What they really want to do in India is to create a job, like this job. The picture is about the assembly line for the iPhone assembly line in China. Foxconn is the company that they doing this outsourcing. They hire a lot of workers in China, and those workers mostly does not have very much skill. It's just like migrant workers from a countryside, not very much education, probably junior high school or something, junior high school, but they hire a lot of this work. For old iPhone, you will see this is designed in California, assembled in China. So assembly work in the job on assembly line is very, very labor intensive. Does not require a lot of skill. You don't need engineer, you don't need a software developer. You just need migrant worker from the countryside. And they make some money, but they make money higher than they make in the agriculture sector, right? But not very much compared to the engineer. But that's a job for them, right? This is the unskilled job in iPhone assembly. This is a sector they Make India initiative is trying to do. It's supposed to try to do, right? Also, garment sectors, garment industry. See how many workers they hire. They make clothes. And this is the garment sectors. Also, I think this picture is taken in the Bangladesh, and the Bangladesh has a very strong garment sector. Also in the Cambodia has a very large garment sectors, and so these sectors also hire a lot of workers. Mining workers. They don't have much education. Those people don't have much education, but the job does not require a lot of formal education. They just need on-the-job training. Give them some training, then they can handle the job. So this is a job that, according to the Prime Minister Modi's advisor, who is economist, that India should be trying to develop. But those jobs does not look glamorous as solar panel, as electric vehicles, but they solve the problem, right? When I talk to people in India, not very many people realize this is the industry they should foster, they should develop. Instead, some people, most India, very nationalism. They're very proud of themselves. They're very nationalist, and then they try to say we should develop some big company, big industries, like auto, like machinery, and all those sectors, and probably we try then to make our countries proud. It's just like today's prime minister in Thailand. They say we're going to have some electric vehicles, like has solar panels, all those jobs. But that's jobs looks good, but does not create a lot employment opportunities for the poor, right? No politician will say we want to have some labor-intensive jobs to create jobs. That does not make them looks ambitious. They want to be ambitious. They want to do something. They want to aim high to see. They want to aim high. Just like many years ago in Indonesia, in Suharto, under Suharto regime, they developed something like an airplane industry, aviation industry. Their son is run a company to make the airplane for Indonesia. That's so all the politicians, they like to do something looks advanced, looks glamorous, but those make them look good, but does not create opportunities for the poor. So the politicians have a different agenda. The politicians have different agenda. On one hand, and those kind of work to encourage more development, more investment in labor-intensive sector involves a lot of work. You have to find out the industrial park. You have to find out get a land to build industrial park. You had to find out bring people come in. So to help the poor to develop this garment and assembly line, there's a lot of work. But it's a lot easier for the politician. Just say to the poor, I raise your wage, right? I raise your wage, I give you subsidies. That's easier. It's politically it's easier, but does not make economic sense. When you do something make economic sense, they require a lot of homework. They require a lot of work. The politician has to deal with the development of industrial park. They have to talk to identify the good investors. They bring them come to the countries, but that's involve a lot of work. It's not easy. So for politicians, I think they are trying to do something easier for themselves. I mean, they want to, on one hand, they want to get the votes to make the voters vote for them. On the other hand, they don't want to do something more complicated job. They want to do something easy to do, something easy to do. For example, rice support. You just tell the farmers, I'm going to pay you to buy all your rice at a higher price. And in India, they give a lot of subsidies. They pass the law to protect the farmers. It's easier, politically it's easier, but economically it does not make sense. Yeah, doesn't make sense. So the real work, the real job, those countries in India is like garment job, or it's like the assembly line for those workers. Though that's the job exactly need for India. If you want to improve the opportunities for the poor and fight poverty and reduce the inequality. Okay, but what happened to India? Let's look at the number. Let's look at the number. From 2013, the year before the Modi came to power, and to 2019. Actually, I took a lot of time to find these numbers. And I choose 2019 instead of 2022 is because the COVID has made the picture the COVID is make the numbers complicated. So I try to pick up the year before the COVID, the year before the COVID. That's 2019. We see from this the year before Modi come to power, and then this 2019 is the year 14, 15. That's the year about 6 years under the Modi administration. We see the labor force in agriculture sector still has increased, not decreased. It still does not same. It had the same, pretty much the same, right? 45%, 46%. Agriculture in GDP has been, steadily growing. It's not declining. It should be declining, right? Has been increasing. Manufacturing sectors, the share of manufacture in the GDP has slightly declined. We don't see significant increase. We want to see there is a bigger share of manufacturing in the GDP, but actually we don't see that much. Service, is quite big, right? Service sector is quite big. So the problem with this diagram show that under the first couple of years, for 6 months, 6 years under the Modi, the manufacturing share has not increased very much. So which means this is the number people cite to say the Make in India initiative actually is not a great success. It's not a great success because the manufacturing sector is too small. 15 or 14% is too small. It should be much bigger. It's too small. So that's the problem, right? Still a large population, 45% to 45 to 46% of labor force in agriculture. Yeah, you cannot make them get rich by working in the agriculture. You have to move them out of the agriculture and put them in the manufacturing sectors. So why India? The problem is why Make India is failed to take off? Why there's a very few large manufacturing companies? Why there's a large manufacturing company that are all capital intensive? For example, in auto and energy. For example, the good example is Tata Company, Tata Group. Why service IT sector have to become such a big part of the economy? Like Infosys, right? Infosys, that's the big IT company in India. So, but neither Tata nor Infosys generate jobs suitable for rural poor migrant laborers. They welcome engineering. So that's the problem for India, right? That's the problem for India. The reason why it is not, that's because the labor law. This is the big part of the Indian. This is a labor law. The labor law is a product of independence movement against the British. Because they it's closely associated with the Indian nationalism. It imposed restriction on firms to firing workers if it's a large firm. For example, if you hire 100 employees, originally it's hire 100 employees, then it's almost impossible for you to fire workers. It's almost impossible to fire workers. So if you are an investor, you are a company, you're a businessman, you want to set up a company, you want to make sure your employee number will be under 100. Because if your employee is about 100, you have subject to the labor law. You have to provide all those benefits, all those including minimum wage, including the minimum wage, holidays, and a lot of benefit, labor benefit to workers, unions, and so this makes very, very difficult to develop labor-intensive sectors. Remember, so this law was developed under the British rule before India achieved independence. But it tried to, it's a movement, independence movement, also the labor movement, and try to protect the rights of Indian workers under the British rule. But after India achieved independence, become independent, they keep the same law. They keep same law. They try to, they keep same law. But the law, the intention was to protect the Indian workers. So make the firm, especially a large firm, difficult, or almost impossible to fire workers. So originally it is required if the firm has 100 or more workers, you cannot fire people, right? But now later they changed. In the past decade, some people say, "Oh, this labor law is too stringent, too difficult to follow. Make the business, make it difficult to run a business in India." So now they changed. They changed to 300 people. But 300 people is still very, very, how to say, very difficult If you want to run a company like this, Foxconn, or government function like in Bangladesh, it's easily to hire 300 people, right? But if you want to develop this sector, you have to have the 300 people. If you have the labor law, you say if you hire more than 100 people or 300 people, you cannot fire them. Then why do business investor want to invest in these sectors? They don't want to invest in these sectors, right? They only invest in small firm, very small shops, very small shops, or that small. If you're small, you cannot create jobs. But then, or you do something else. You do something big, but does not require a lot of labor. You do something big, require a lot of capitals, like energy, like auto. But those companies are big, but does not hire a lot of workers, right? Does not hire a lot of workers. That's why they don't have a lot of opportunities. India's manufacturers has been very small. The Indian manufacturer has been very small because all those problems, because the labor law. But why the information technology is different? Information technology, IT firms can be so developed because IT is exception because it's registered under the different set laws. It's not subject to the law applied to manufacturers. So IT is exception. That's why IT firms can hire a lot of workers. And they can lay off the workers if they want. Recently, in the past months or so, early in this year, you heard the news of Infosys and Wipro have laid off about 100 workers. But this is impossible for the manufacturing sectors because it's impossible to fire people in the large manufacturing sectors. The investor choose not to invest in the labor-intensive manufacturing sectors. And the investor will say, okay, let's do something. If we want to do some big sector, big investment in the manufacturing, we choose to invest a sector that requires a lot of capital and not a lot of workers. That's why it's very strange in India. They have a big IT, it's a strange idea. They have all those capital-intensive companies, big companies, the capital-intensive companies, and they have a very developed information technology industries. But they don't have large companies like this. They don't have this. But those are the companies like the sector that create the jobs, like the people in the Bangladesh or in Cambodia or in Vietnam. And that's something they're doing. They don't have this job, they don't have the manufacturers, and they don't have this manufacturing because labor law. And the labor law went back to the colonial era when the Indian independent movement tried to protect the Indian workers from the British. But now after the independence, they keep the same law and the same, but it's difficult. It's difficult to reform. But why it is so difficult to engage in economic reform, political reform? That's another issue. It's beyond the scope of this lecture. In short, the Indian's political system is very difficult to move forward to reform. They have many, many reasons. One is that India has been very diverse. They are very diverse. They have a many group of people, different background people. They're very diverse, and some economic policy that work in a textbook does not work in reality. For example, let's give an example. If you opened up foreign trade, opened up economy. It's good for the economy, right? Globalization. If you opened up the economy, it's good for the economy because the economy will grow bigger. The overall economy will grow bigger for any countries. However, it's not good for everybody in the economy. Some people benefit, a winner. Some people are losers, right? But overall economy is getting bigger, which means we have a bigger pie. The pie is getting bigger, but some people get a smaller slice. Because of this, some people were against the globalization. Then some economists say, well, we can find a problem. We can find a solution to this problem. How to do this? If the pie getting bigger, we can always make some adjustment, redistribution of the benefits of the globalization to make compensation to the poor, to the losers, to make compensation to the losers and through taxation and transfer payment so that everybody in the economy is better off. So globalization make the economy bigger, but make some people worse off. And we can make some policy, develop some policy that can make everybody share the benefit of globalization through taxation and transfer payment. This sounds good. It sounds good. But in practice, it is very, very difficult to implement. And this happened in the United States when the blue-collar worker feel they cannot enjoy the benefit of globalization, then they elect Donald Trump. The populist politician, they elect Donald Trump. That's the example. But in the democracy like United States, it is difficult to implement the economic policy that looks good on the textbook, but it's difficult in reality. It is more so in the democracy. That's a flawed economy democracy in India. So India's situation is much, much more complicated in the United States. So some of the textbook policy looks good on textbook, but simply doesn't work in India. So that's why in India, the reform is very, very difficult. It takes a very, very long time to do the reform. Some of the Indian policies has been there for a long time, but it's very difficult to reform. Even though reform can be good for the whole country, economic reform can be good for the whole country, but it's not good for some people. Then there's a opposition. Because of opposition, they cannot move forward. So that's the problem with India. So that's the because of historical problem with the land labor law and land law. And let me talk about the land law a little bit. The land law is to protect the poor farmers who can veto any land deals. If you are farmers in the rural area and some people want to talk to you to get your land, and they want to build industrial park, they want to get your land, they make you some compensation. You can ask for price. You can say no. You can say no. For any price, you can say no if you're not happy with the compensation. So that's the that's the problem for the India. The land law make them difficult to build industrial park. The government has to go through the legal procedure to go to the court to if there's a dispute, right? But most likely the landowners will win the case. So it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. The law is to protect the poor farmers and make them very difficult to get land. But in Thailand, we know in China, let's look for China. In China, that's just the different. China is not democracy. If the government want the land, they just grab the land. They kick out the farmers, give some minimal compensation, let them go, and then get the land and build industrial park, build a special economic zone. Thailand is somewhere in between, right? If you when I read the news about the economic corridor, Eastern Economic Corridor, and they also had the problem with the farmers, the landowners. They about the compensation, the proper compensation, the environmental evaluation, etc. All those problems, but China is extreme. China is because China is not democracy. The government can do, there's the minimal, there's a little protection for the laborers and for the landowners. So there are no landowners. All land are government owned by the government, right? All land are owned by the government. That's why China is so quick to develop its manufacturers. The labor is they're very minimal labor protection. Very little protection, and the land belong to the government. So the government can do anything with the land, right? So but in India it's different. It's different. They have a stringent law to protect laborers, and to make firm reluctant to invest in the factories in a sector that hire a lot of laborers, right? And they have land laws to protect the poor farmers. So it's very difficult to get the land to build industrial park. So that's the problem. That's the problem with India. That's the problem with India, right? Okay, so what can we learn? The lesson learned for Thailand. Moderation is the key. Moderation is key, right? All the economic policy, the land laws and labor laws, they have a good intention, but bad results. It sounds very familiar because it sounds like India's, the Thailand's minimum wage. They try to help the poor, but when you implement this the minimum wage, the firms, the business will reduce their hiring. So this is bad for the economy. So some policies are good intention, but bad results. India and China are two extremes for labor protection, right? One is overprotection, one is lack of protection. The different historical background. So India, that's because of nationalism developed under during the independence movement. And in China, it's a party state dictatorship, right? There's different political system. Both are bad for the poor laborers, for bad laborers. So the moderation is the key. You got to do something, in between. You give some protection, but not that too rigid. Not that too rigid. Moderation is the key. You have to balance between the protection of labor and also the ease of doing business, right? So that moderation is the key. So lesson for Thailand is Thailand and India, they're different, but also very similar. Both have strong service sectors, tourism versus IT. Both have large labor force. One is 45%, another is 30%, very big. So comparison, we have to make careful about how can make comparison. At the beginning of the economic development for countries, they most likely they have a large population. But over time, as the economy grow, the agriculture population has been getting smaller. So when you compare to India and Thailand, you see, wow, Thailand only has 1/3, but India has about 45% in agriculture sector. Oh, Thailand is doing very well, right? Thailand is doing very good, but that's not the way to comparison. The comparison is made. It should be made on the basis of a same development stage. Like you can't compare the Thailand with other countries with a similar in their development stage with a similar same per capita GDP. You cannot compare Thailand with a poor economy, the lower GDP. You have to compare Thailand with the countries with a similar per capita GDP. In that comparison, Thailand's agriculture labor force has been too big, too much. 30% is too big, or 1/3 is too big compared to countries with a similar same stage of development, which means at the same stage, same per capita GDP. So Thailand has been very slow in moving agriculture labor into manufacturing, has been very slow. So the way we make comparison is very important. You cannot compare Thailand with India because they are in a different development stage. You have to compare Thailand with countries at the same development stage, which means have the same per capita GDP. In that comparison, Thailand has been lag behind, has been very slow by moving labor from agriculture, from rural area to the cities, right? So, but you say, oh, Thailand has but if you look at this unemployment rate, Thailand's unemployment is very, very low. It's about under 1% or something. Unemployment is very, very low, under 1%. Some people are very happy because, oh, well, we have a tight labor market. We have a very low labor rate. But the problem is that we have a low labor rate, but the definition of unemployment is very generous. It's an easy definition. How can you identify people who are employed or not? You just call them to ask them, have you spent hour working in the past week? If you work 1 week, if you work 1 hour, just 1 hour per week, you're counted as employed. This is the official definition of employment for all the government agencies, for all the government in Thailand, in Australia, in China. It's a standard, definition of employment. So this definition is very, very easy definition. It's very easy definition. But they cannot tell your employment is good quality or low quality employment. But most of the economy in developing country, in India and also Thailand, they are in the informal sectors. The employment quality is very low because the wage is very low. So that's the unemployment rate is small, is low, is 1%, but does not say your labor have a good quality of employment. So that's two different things. So both India and Thailand are trying to promote capital technology intensive manufacturing, auto, solar energy, right? You see, but that's make the politicians look good, but does not solve the problem. It does not solve the problem. They both share the same challenge, job creation for unskilled poor laborers. The challenge is job creation. You create high-paying job for the unskilled poor laborers. Unskilled poor laborers from Isan, when they come to Bangkok, they cannot find job in auto sector, in solar sector, or energy sectors. They cannot find job in artificial intelligence data center. They have to find a suitable job for them, right? So where's the suitable job? That's probably in this the job. This job they need, right? This is the job they need. Labor-intensive manufacturing jobs does not require a lot of skill, but they train them. They can provide training and to fit into this manufacturing industry. So this is the what both countries are needed. Both share the same challenge, job creation, and unskilled poor laborers. In India, in the past several years under Modi, they make progress, but not very impressive. Not very impressive. That's because of the historical reason. There's a law, different politics, right? They have different politics. But political prescription, the policy prescription for India is, it's a reform law, labor and land laws, build special economic zone, industrial parks, welcome investment in labor-intensive manufacturers. It's toy, furniture, garment, electronic assemblies. And they also have cut subsidies to agriculture. Because if you cut subsidy agricultures, the farmers will have a more incentive to move out of agriculture into the manufacturing sectors, right? But if you if you give too much subsidies to agricultures, that people don't want to move, don't want to live in the rural area. They want to stay there. They enjoy this subsidy, right? So during the in-lock years, when the Thai government provide price support for the rice, a lot of people move back to the countryside, move back to the agriculture sector from cities, right? That is bad for the manufacturing development. The policy should be cut subsidies to agriculture, encourage people move out of agriculture, right? So this is the policy prescription for India. From the reading of the Professor Panakaria, it's very it's his recommendation. Make economic sense, right? But I think we can borrow this. We can borrow this from India. Thailand can borrow it from India, but because they have the same economics, the underlying economic logic the same. They have a different politics. The two countries has different politics, but same economics. The same economy. What's the same economy? They share the same challenges. You need to create a job for the unskilled poor laborers. That's what you need to do, right? That's what you need to do. So this is the problem for a challenge for Thailand, for India, but it's also challenge for Thailand. So the two countries fundamentally has the same economic problem so far. You cannot rely on service. You cannot rely on service. Solely rely on service. You cannot rely on capital intensive, technology intensive, glamorous sectors, right? You have to do something about the labor intensive manufacturing jobs. That's the key to solve your poverty problem. But the problem they facing the two countries are different in terms of politics, but in economic they're the same, right? Okay, that's my presentation for today, and I welcome your comments. You can either send me the email to me or make comments to the video in the lecture homepage. I will try to check the website. I will try to check the website to read your comments and interact